Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest edition of Three Wise Men. I have, as usual, Sid with me and Arvind joining us. So, guys, we are going to make this a little bit about Chelsea, talk more about Chelsea's season, and maybe go a little bit into their history if time permits. Uh, Arvind, right off the bat, great season for Chelsea. Not such a great start though. Overall, what were your feelings, your thoughts as a fan when Conte came in but couldn't get the right balance in the team for the first like 4-5 games where they lost to Liverpool, they lost to Arsenal. What were your thoughts as a Chelsea fan? Was it like, oh God, did we get the wrong guy, or did you guys, in general, did the Chelsea fans have confidence in Conte?
So I'll be honest when I say that when I heard of Conte get hired in April, I was like, who is this guy? I didn't know much about him, to be honest. And then I saw him in the Italy national squad at the Euros last year, and that just got me excited about his possibilities at Chelsea. Now, I don't think he had a great transfer market. I think they were chasing Koulibaly, the Napoli defender, for a long time over the summer last year, and the first three games before the transfer window closed were actually pretty exciting. And that time we didn't have Alonso and David Luiz, and the Watford game was very exciting. Batshuayi was someone who looked like a very promising signing in the first two games, one assist and one goal. And yeah, then the Arsenal and the Liverpool game happened, and my thought after the Arsenal game was, I want to see what Conte does next. It felt like it did feel like it's going to be a transition season, but yeah, we all saw the results, and amazing performance by him.
Did you, you know what? I think when I was talking with Sid and some of our other friends, I said the manager I expected to struggle the most was Conte, and I'll be honest to admit that mainly because he was coming from what like one horse title in Juventus in Italy, and then 2 years or 3 years as the national team manager. So I was thinking that he would be like the first to struggle, first to be found out. But I guess he proved my personal opinion wrong, and I have to give him credit there. Sid, what were your thoughts when we had like last summer was the summer of managers, right? Like you had Mourinho and Conte plus Wenger as usual. So what were your thoughts
There
when
was a
when Conte?
certain Guardiola as well. Don't know
Oh
if
yeah,
you heard about.
okay, Guardiola as well.
Yeah, firstly, I'd like to pick up on your point about us expecting Conte to struggle the most. I think a lot of the foreign managers who come in and are not too comfortable with the English language in general, I feel kind of have an advantage in general. And that's the likes of Conte, the likes of Pochettino, the likes of Walter Mazzari barely spoke to the media in their first year, or even if they did, it was very limited. So I think in England in general, it helps to keep your um communication with the media to a certain limit, which has helped all three of the managers that I mentioned. But yeah. Mourinho came in, Conte came in, Guardiola came in, and obviously we had Wenger. Klopp came in a while before that, and we all expected, especially Guardiola with the money and the squad he had, to just run away with the title. But I mean, amazing job by Chelsea and Spurs and both the managers. I think what Conte did uh, with the formation that he tried with the players that he had, I think it takes a lot of courage and um, sorry for the language, but a lot of balls to do that. You can't. No one's come to England. and won the title playing a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3 with, let's be honest, not the best players, with the likes of Moses and Alonso. So I mean, that's just uh, amazing tactics and amazing hard work on the training field.
Shannon, if I may step in real quick, why did you think Conte would, other than the fact that he has to adjust, what made you think that he would not succeed, especially in his first year?
Well, just because what he was up against, right? Uh, we mentioned Guardiola coming in, we mentioned Mourinho coming in. There was already Pochettino, there was Klopp building something at Liverpool, and the perennial Wenger. So when I looked at Conte and when I looked at Chelsea's previous season, that's what I was uh, not concerned about, but that's what I was thinking about. Like, can he motivate these players enough to come back to their best? It's not like an on and off switch where the first 6 months of the season the players were just terrible and somehow they recovered and ended up 10th. But can Conte give them the extra push? Also, uh, the English league is a lot different than the Italian league, and also the playing in the Euros. So that's where my concerns were based on. Can
I
Conte cope up? It was
And
more like, can Conte cope with the Premier League? That I was thinking was a major question.
and more than that, I mean, the major challenge for Conte was to pick up the dressing room. I mean, if let's say Arvind, you are in that Chelsea dressing room, it's not easy to have four managers within the span of 1 year who are going to decide how you play, who are going to manage the club. Mourinho, Steve Holland for a while, Gus Hiddink, and then Conte. So it's a major challenge to motivate the players when there is that sudden change of managers. But that's Chelsea have proven us wrong. I mean, we think that won't do it, but somehow it works for Chelsea.
So I want to point out a couple of things. Now, there was 3 years of continuity, and Mourinho got a long-term contract just the beginning of 2015-16. So, and yeah, Steve Holland was there for one game with Goose hitting on the stand. So your point is not entirely true. Um, I think and to support your argument, I still remember the very first game in the season when Collins scored an equalizer against Chelsea, and it was 1-1. And the thought process as a fan was, oh man, this is again last season when the mentality was weak and things weren't good. And then that goal in the 89th minute that Costa scored to give us a winner in the very first game, I think that just set a platform going ahead in that, that self-belief, that fighting spirit that is always associated with Chelsea was, which was lost somewhere last season, was regained. It just felt like, we can achieve something special this season.
I mean, how does Mourinho getting a long-term contract take away the fact that Chelsea had four managers? Even if Steve Holland was a caretaker for one game, they had four managers within a span of 1 year. It doesn't
Okay.
matter. Contracts don't matter in today's world. So if Mourinho got a 3, 4, 5 year contract, it doesn't matter at all.
So
Yeah, that's one thing, right? You won't associate manager continuity and stability with Chelsea, to be really honest. I mean, we're not trying to pick on Chelsea, but I think that is one club that has managed to attain sustained success despite changing so many managers. Like you hear so many times in footballing world that you need some sort of stability in management for the manager, for the coaches to implement their ideas. It's not an overnight thing, but for some reason Chelsea has always been exempt for it. Like I lost count of the number of managers you had. Like it started with Mourinho. You have what, Kolari, ABV, Benitez.
Avram Grant.
Yeah,
Avram
Grant,
Grant, Ray Wilkins, Carlo Ancelotti, Roberto Di Matteo,
ABV then after.
Good points. Good points.
So what?
Rafa Benitez.
So is it? I mean, I don't want to put it harshly, but as a player or as a supporter with Chelsea, how is it easy to back your manager when like the trend of the last 10 years is he won't last beyond season number 2.
Or to put it in a better way, how do you back your manager? How do you back Conte now, when you know that if he has a bad run for 6 months, Abramovich is ruthless enough to get rid of him and get another manager?
So, as someone looking at Chelsea, this is a very, very valid concern, and this is, we'll get to youth development soon, but I feel that this is the number one reason why Chelsea have not been able to get more youth players to the first team. But I want to hit on a couple of things. The first one is Sid hit on the media and not knowing the language initially. I think Conte's use and the way he has dealt with the media has been masterful. He has said all the right things. He has not been in verbal wars with Mourinho, even though Mourinho tried to invite him multiple times. He's been respectful of Wenger, Guardiola, Pochettino, everyone. And I think off the pitch, there's been a very, very good vibe about Chelsea this year, which is very encouraging. There have always been issues before. The second thing I would like to say is I'm going to disagree on the manager front for the last 4 to 5 years, and this is what I have to say. When I said Mourinho got a long-term contract in the beginning of year 2015-16, the idea was that Mourinho was going to stay there for the long term. Mourinho wanted to stay. He enjoyed the club. He loved the club, and Chelsea fans and Chelsea loved Mourinho. The usual problem crept in with Mourinho's third season, though. And I think anytime a club like Chelsea or Manchester United or Arsenal are 16th in the league after 16, 17 games, that is worth sacking for. And that is just a personal opinion. So for me, sacking Mourinho was completely justified. Now, the last point I want to make before you all chime in is the fact on player development. And I think Victor Moses is a prime example of this. When he was there with Di Matteo and Benitez, he got about 25 to 30 games in the league. And then Mourinho came in. Mourinho didn't trust him. 3 years he was out. Conte trusted him. He kept him, didn't put him out, didn't put him back on loan, and he's reaped the rewards today. So player development is hugely dependent on this. Go ahead.
I mean, you kind of avoided the question completely when when we asked how is it as a fan to stand behind any manager when you know that Abramovich is, let's say Chelsea are going to be 10th after 2 months. Abramovich is ruthless enough to say, you're off, we're getting someone else. How is it as a fan? Because I can't relate to that.
Sure. So first off, you probably can relate to that, right? You've seen the sacking of Moyes after 10 months. You've seen the sacking of Louis
No,
Van
I
Gaal.
can't. No,
hold
no,
on,
no.
hold on.
I-
Let me finish.
No,
You've
because
seen
it's
this-
wrong.
Let me finish.
It's wrong to
You-
compare Moyes and
Let me finish. Let me finish.
who do you say? Mourinho. or Van Gaal or anyone. Moyes followed a manager who was there for 26 years, and he
Well,
was
someone
not,
had to follow him, right?
right. Agreed, and he was not 60. Whatever he. It was not about the league position. It was more about the way the team was playing that frustrated everyone. That led to his demise, so to say.
Sure.
And,
so
and for
you
Mourinho, it was more about losing the dressing room. Not even the 16th position. It was losing the dressing room and the players not playing for him on the pitch, especially
so
after the
first
Eva
off-
Carneiro incident.
So first off, I'm a big fan of Mourinho. Let me put it that way. He is one of the biggest and best managers that Chelsea will ever have. So let's get that out of the picture. But one thing we do want to keep in mind is that with Chelsea comes a certain amount of negativity, and you guys probably see it from your end now, where you feel like the whole world is against you, and that's a lot of Mourinho's making. And part of that. So again, the season 2015-16 as it started, the Eva Carneiro, and he got sent to the stands multiple times, and then he started accusing players. It was just this whole era of negativity that he formed in the 3 or 4 months, where all the momentum that we had winning the title had completely gone. And yes, because of all that, he lost the dressing room. Now, as a fan, I think it is hard when managers get sacked often. But I honestly believe that there is a new long term approach that Chelsea has tried to implement ever since the hiring of Mourinho. And they are trying to continue that with Conte. There has been talks of him getting a new long-term contract. Now I'll say it again: if Chelsea are 16th and the way the manager behaved in December of 2016, accusing anyone and everyone and fighting with anyone and everyone, then it is another sackable offense in my case.
So fair to say that, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I'm just trying to understand the ideology. So is it fair to say that the fans kind of
Have accepted the fact that
have accepted the fact that Abramovich or the board, is right in what they do as long as the titles are being delivered?
So there is a slight difference here. Okay. And again, from my end, I see a very clear change in the behavior of the board in the last 5, 6 years. So, first off, I think it is absurd to think that a manager or an owner who is and who owns businesses worth about what 10, 11 billion is going to micromanage a club that he has bought. So there are people who do that. Similarly, I think it is absurd to think that the owner would be pulling strings on whom to buy and sell in the transfer market. If
Do you
that's the
know?
case, the owner can come and play football as well. So
Do you know for a fact that Abramovich has a say in, who kind of is a permanent uh, stay in the first team and who is not, how the youth is controlled? Do you know Abramovich is involved that deeply? And I'm not making up stuff here. That's a fact. That's how
for
invested. I'm not saying that might be micromanagement, but that might be him being deeply invested as an owner and he cares. But that's how involved he is. So it's not absurd to say that he's micromanaging or he's superly involved. He is.
there is
for
there is a
example, right? I will give you the example of Andrei Shevchenko. Like it's a well-known fact that Mourinho didn't want him, and Abramovich bought him because I don't know, he was a friend or he wanted like a superstar signing, and Mourinho was forced to play Shevchenko, which ended up Mourinho losing his job, right? So I mean, it's not a absurd fact that if someone claims that Abramovich is deeply uh, involved in day-to-day dealings at Chelsea, it's a pretty well-known fact, to be honest. And
so
I actually believe, like for example, you had people like ABV and Di Matteo, who was sacked 6 months after winning your only Champions League and with the FA Cup to boot. Not to mention Carlo Ancelotti, who won the double in his first season, and just because he didn't win anything in the second, he was sacked. So you might say that there's a different approach, but unfortunately, there's nothing to back that up now. Now, if as a neutral or as a non-Chelsea supporter, if I see Conte lasting this season despite not winning any silverware, then I can say, okay, Abramovich is maybe changing his ways. He believes in this manager's philosophy and ideas. The first season was okay, a really good season. Second was still in transition, and the third is where it gets in. Like that, is that not the reason why no one lasts beyond season two? Because it's difficult to replicate your success from the first season in the second, especially in such a competitive league that the Premier League is in, right? So I would not call Conte a long-term manager till I see him, being Chelsea's manager at the beginning of the third season. That's just my
true.
opinion.
And that's and so you bring up. I'll tell you the subtext of what you're saying is very important here, and that is that I can rant for the next 45 minutes that Chelsea have changed, but as long as there are no facts to back that up, there is no truth in what I'm saying.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yes, so to your point, I feel that it's high time that Chelsea and the board step up and they realized that it's time to stick with one manager for a long time. Based on just one last point, based on all the managers, I think the one sacking that I don't agree with is Ancelotti. That should not have happened. That was just a very bad decision.
And I mean, just to support that point, Gus Hiddink came twice to rescue you guys. But if 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 you're judging a manager based on his credibility and how he's delivered for you, he could have stayed beyond the short stints that he had very easily. But that's
He
not
didn't
how.
want to stay. He was
Yeah,
just an interim manager.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So
all right. Moving on from the manager carousel, uh, what as a fan, what do you want to do Chelsea? What do you want to see Chelsea do next? Like, what sort of players do you think will come, and what sort of what how will Chelsea evolve is essentially what I'm trying to get at next season.
So the first naive hope is I see three or four amazing youth products who if you can tell me that Chelsea will finish in the top four next season and there will be three starters from the amazing youth products that we have, I would take that as a resounding success. But of course, in more realistically, if even one come through, then that'll be great. In terms of signings, I feel we don't need anyone in defense. We do need one backup goalkeeper, and Willy Caballero seems like someone who's been signed. We need someone in central midfield. Right now, they have three people: Fabregas, Kante, Matic. I think a fourth one is needed for competition, especially with Champions League coming in. Lastly, it looks like one of the two strikers are going to go, but usually in that front three, one more player is needed to complete the squad.
Arvind, you mentioned you'd be happy even if one of the youth products come through. Who do you think is the most likely or capable of coming through next season? Where do you think he'll play? And more importantly, who do you think he'll potentially replace going ahead?
So first off, in terms of replacements, I don't think you are not looking for a starting 11. So anytime anyone new comes in, you're looking for them to slowly blend into the team and then displace someone. But to your point, Andres Christensen is an amazing prospect. There's been talk of Barcelona potentially bidding 30 million for him, and I think Chelsea have an amazing defender who is strong on the ball, capable with both feet, and at the same time, he is very level-headed. I would like to see him more. I think Chaloba can be given more chances next year. And finally, looks like Tammy Abraham is going out on loan, but he is a very, very exciting prospect for the future.
But let's say Christensen does come in and, Chelsea just put in a 52 or whatever million bid for Koulibaly. So you have Koulibaly, David Luiz, who you spend a lot of money on, and Azpilicueta. So, and Cahill, if you're assuming you play a back three, where does Christensen fit in? Because do you want another Ake-like situation? Which is why I asked, who do you see him, even getting, replacing for half the game time?
So first things first, if we follow every rumor and trust, I think a few days back you told me Morata was going to AC Milan. So my point is, the thing with rumors is let's wait for them to get confirmed. I mean, we can look at some strong rumors, but if you look at every rumor, then we're going to have 35-40 players by the end of the year.
Isn't this the time for rumors, though? I mean,
Sure. My point is,
Also, don't
Chelsea.
have 35-40 players on loan anywhere.
My point is, so right now there are
okay.
five
Let's
defenders.
let's take Koulibaly out of the picture. You still
Yeah,
have
there are right now.
settled back three.
Yeah, but
There's a settled back three,
I mean, in Chelsea's
Aki
defense,
and
last year they didn't need much rotation.
exactly.
They played like what 43 games whole season, but this season is going to be. I mean, they hope it's going to be different, right? Like you want to be playing more than 6 Champions League games. You want to be playing more than one FA Cup game and one League Cup game. So there is, if you want to go deep into those competitions, Chelsea need one or two defenders, at least one midfielder and one striker.
So the reason why I said Chelsea don't need any defenders is they currently have five with Terry and Ivanovic leaving. So they had six last year. And that's where Christensen comes in to replace that. So six defenders for actually sorry 7 defenders for five
Yeah.
spots seems very manageable, and I think you need that amount of backup. So yeah, Christensen might be a backup, but if that means he can force his way into the team with FA Cup, EFL Cup games, and the occasional Premier League game, then I'll be happy with that.
By the
And
way,
of course, Chelsea have been lucky with injuries. That may not be the case next year, so we do need the backup.
By the way, the Juventus president came out and released a statement that they've rejected a 50 plus million bid for Sandro, their left back. So that's clearly not a rumor. Alexandro.
I can see why that would be. But staying with the current squad, I want to bring up what I feel is the most problematic department at Chelsea right now, despite them being really good, and that is the striking. Uh, I guess we'll all agree on the fact that Michy Batshuayi, though is a good bit part player, is not what a starting striker for Premier League champion. Is not of that quality, unfortunately. And the one that is Diego Costa has too much going on right now. There's multiple reporters coming out and saying Costa got a text from Conte, and Conte told him that he's not in his plans anymore. I mean, I know, Arvind, you don't like rumors, you don't like speculating, but say if Costa goes, hypothetically, who do you think Chelsea should be like going after 100% to make sure that they don't miss Costa's work rate, Costa's harrying, and Costa's goal scoring ability? Who do you think would be the best?
By the way,
Sid, you wanted to go ahead? Yeah.
Yeah, before you start, Arvind. So it wasn't a rumor, Shannon. Diego Costa, I think after one of the Spain games, actually came out in his post-match interview and said what he said, that he got a text from whatever that Conte told me that I'm not part of his plan. So he said it out clearly in the public.
Okay.
So,
I just wanted one
first
to
off-
confirm it.
So first off, the hope is Diego Costa will stay, and he is a monster of a striker. I think we've spoken about him before. But the other thing that I firmly believe is anytime a personnel leaves, it gives the club and a manager like Conte a chance to change the way they play. Now, Batshuayi is a certain type of striker, and I'm assuming that if Costa leaves, Batshuayi is going to stay. But it gives us a chance to get a different profile of a player. Now, strikers are going to be expensive. Belotti and Morata and Griezmann are all, they're talking about 70, 80, 90, 100 million. So Mbappe is 120 million. So yeah, it's a tough market at this time. And I think what would answer your question more is, what do Chelsea want to evolve into if Costa leaves? And that is something I'm not sure about. I think Morata would fit in very well in Chelsea, where he can team up very well with Hazard and Pedro. So that was something I was looking forward to, but looks like United have that confirmed. Sid?
So no, I just wanted to add. I'm just gonna read out Costa's interview. It's good to hope that
No.
he'll stay.
I can trust you.
No.
I
So-
remember reading it. I can trust you on that, man.
No, I don't
Oh,
know
by the
why.
way,
I don't know why you'd say you still hope he'll stay, because he says, I got a message from a manager Conte saying I'm no longer part of his plans. So I don't know. I'm a Chelsea player, but because I have a contract, but the manager doesn't want me in the team, so I will have to leave. So I mean,
two things.
yeah.
So first off, yes, that is, let's say that was said, and let's say that is true, which it is. Then it doesn't mean that they can't patch up or whatever. Unless someone leaves, for sure, I'm still going to hope that Costa stays. But I think this summer, one player that Chelsea can go for is Freddie Llorente. He has been consistently scoring goals, and he's old enough where Chelsea can probably get him for 10-15 million, and he can give us Fernando Llorente. Yes, my bad. We can get a good 2 seasons out of him. That might be a good signing. I want to add one larger picture. Conte is a manager who likes players who likes a more mature squad. In Juventus, his average age of the three squads he had was about 28 to 30. So that is something to look out for. He might go for a slightly more mature player who is already developed.
So I have another question. Let's say Costa stays, or if Costa leaves, you get Lorente. Fantasy
Sid,
land. And
if I may
and
interject, Sid, just 1 second. Who do you think would fit really well in Chelsea's front line?
um, I, I you know I am a big fan of Lukaku. Not the rest of the rest of the world is not. Everyone believes he's not a finished product, which is true. But I think the way that Chelsea play, um, the only player I see who fits the system like for like is Lukaku. You're not gonna have Lorente make those runs behind the defender, run in and finish with the foot or the head. Batshuayi will not do that. Only Lukaku would do that. Yes, Lukaku has a lot of things to improve on, and of course he's expensive. He's going to be expensive, but just looking at the way Chelsea function with a Drogba or with a Costa, I think the only player available in the market right now who fits perfectly is Lukaku. And I know you kind of
Do you think,
disagree.
yeah,
I,
Shannon, do you
I,
think Lukaku fits well with Chelsea?
I think he would. I think it's already done and dusted. The way Everton is going around spending silly
Yeah.
money on likes of goalkeepers and central midfielders. I think they have already. They're trying to make sure they have the players they want before they let Lukaku go. So I think it's pretty much done, and I think he would be a good fit. The only concern I have about Lukaku is he's not a consistent goal scorer. Like he would score a hat trick and then he would go dry for 5 games. He scored another hat trick, another 5 games. He's that sort of a player. So if the one thing if he has to improve is instead of having those hat trick games every once in 10 games, you should probably have like a 1 game or a 2 game, 2 goal game more
and
often.
that's where you have brilliant managers coaching you, so that's where Conte
I,
can
I think he would improve a lot under Conte. He's definitely a better manager than Ronald Koeman and Roberto Martinez. So he'll definitely improve there. But
yeah.
again, it if he has to improve in one particular area, I think it would be that.
And what I was going to ask uh, just a while back was that what do you think, or do you think, Arvind, that even if you keep Costa or get a Lukaku or a Lorente for him and you have a Batshuayi, do you think with Champions League and League Cup and FA Cup and the Premier League, do you think two strikers is enough going into the season?
Yeah, I think the way Chelsea play with Hazard, Pedro, Willian, two strikers seems good enough for the way Chelsea play. Now, if there's a third striker, I can see other people criticizing Chelsea for not giving them enough chances. So, if there is going to be a third striker, he has to be someone like a 34-year-old who is okay with, or like a Drogba when Mourinho's title-winning season, where he would play the occasional game, but he's okay with sitting in the bench.
Wouldn't you rather have someone from the reserves
Yeah, a youth
instead of
player
instead
called
of
up.
a Lorente? Like that
Yep.
would be.
True. For me, Lorente was the second striker. I would love to have Tammy Abraham as a third striker, and the main reason I say that is because I know that Chelsea are looking at a 4-2-4 as well as another system, and he is a very different profile of a striker as compared to Lorente or Batshuayi.
All right. Well, uh, moving on. I guess it'll be just to sum up. Really exciting transfer window. What what I feel it'll be more like a domino effect. One player moves from one club to another, and it will trigger like a series of transfers between European giants. Uh, but yeah, we'll find out what's in store. Uh, Before we finish, I just want to go back a couple of years, and I want to uh, bring in go back to the Champions League that Chelsea won. Uh, as as a supporter, how was it feeling? To get to the top of to get back to the promised land essentially that Abramovich was dreaming for 10 years. Uh, I can imagine the ecstasy uh, from the agony back in 2007, 2008, where John Terry decided to give United the Champions League. But how was the feeling finally to achieve the pinnacle of European football?
That's a good question, and yeah. So first off, the agony with Terry missing that penalty, that was huge. And then in 2010, the Barcelona Chelsea game where there were about 7 or 8 decisions against Chelsea. It's part and parcel of the game. And similarly, 2012 was where the stars were just aligned in a perfect direction. There were a couple of stars from that team that Ramirez's wonder goal against Barcelona. But yeah, it was great to win it. It was probably not the way Chelsea wanted to win it. They didn't play with the style that they usually did 5-6 years before that. And since that, there has been a significant change towards a more 4-2-3-1 and a 3-4-3 and a more fluid formation. So yeah, Chelsea have evolved from that. But yeah, it was great winning it, but it wasn't in the style that Chelsea wanted to win it. But yeah, nevertheless, a trophy is a trophy that will stay with a long time.
I have to confess, there are those moments in football that you replay over and over on YouTube. And Shannon, you might connect with me because we've done this a lot of times. And one of my favorite moments in football, keeping my rivalry and hatred aside for Chelsea, was
Torres goal.
was the Torres goal and and Gary Neville just losing it on live television.
The
I think that was.
goalgasm.
Yeah, that was one of the best moments for English teams in Europe, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So here's a funny story. I know we are digressing a little bit. I remember watching the Barcelona Chelsea game, and I was following this one. I wasn't actually watching it. I was following it in my screen, and I was watching Sky Sports commentary, and the score changed from 2-1 to 3-1, and I was like, "Oh crap, that happened again." And then it went back and changed to 2-all, and I was literally jumping in the office, and it was something. That was some game to remember. Yeah, definitely going to be one for the ages.
Okay. Great, great moments there. But just to before
If
we,
I may,
yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead. I wanted to ask one quick question to you guys. What do you all think of the 4 signings that Chelsea made last summer? And just to last point before I request your comment. Chelsea spent 120 million as well. They've recouped a little bit of it, but that wasn't a small amount. So Shannon, what do you think of the 4 Chelsea signings that we made?
I think two of the signings, David Luiz and Alonso, they were made. they- I wouldn't call it panic signings, but I guess Conte had made up his mind by then to play his, 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 rather, and he could not find a ball playing center half that was available, and a decent enough left wing back. So at that point when Chelsea signed David Luiz back, I was like, okay, this stings a little of desperation, like. But when they started playing, when the game started evolving, that's when I understood the importance of someone like David Luiz in Chelsea's system right now. Like, you have the other two guys just defending their butts off, and David Luiz building the game from the back essentially. And if he had any other player other than David Luiz at the moment, he wouldn't have been able to have the same effect on the game, and would have been probably a different story altogether. I I am kind of I tend to be believing in the fact that he was going after someone like Bonucci, and David Luiz was more like oh, I don't have an option, but I need a player like this. And credit to Conte for taking a chance on him. Alonso as well, he worked out pretty well, but I think the main signing that this whole season could and the whole team could be built around was N'Golo Kante. Like the main thing was that he was able to build like such a stiff midfield that it gave the likes of Hazard and Pedro and Willian, to do whatever they wanted to, play that high line and
Great
that
point.
counter attacking football. So, of course, N'Golo Kante signing of the season across the league, no question about that. But David Luiz was an inspired punt, I would say, by by Conte.
So I think David Luiz, the one thing that you didn't focus on was his ability. His positioning has been great this season, and with crosses coming in or things like that, he's been outstanding. He's bad in one-on-ones, and that's where Kante has shielded him.
Yeah,
But
that's exactly like the beauty about Conte is he protects his players' weaknesses. He did
true.
that with Italy during the Euros as well, and he did the exact same thing with Chelsea. Like you could beat David Luiz in a one-on-one. You remember a couple of seasons ago in the Champions
Luis
League,
Suarez.
like Suarez was nutmegging him for fun, right? So
So
I would again think that the reason was what David Luiz was bought was okay. He's a really good header of the ball, so that he's in the middle clearing all those crosses. And the second one, he's great with both feet. He can pick those
mhm.
long passes and create counter attacks out of nothing. So which actually worked out. But
Yeah. So Sid.
as you saw, like there are apparent weaknesses when you had the United game where Mourinho exposed that one defensive frailty that Chelsea had and David Luiz had. Uh,
Hmm.
so though he was great, I think there can be an upgrade on his positioning and on his position as a defender.
So Sid, you've been a very vocal critic of your favorite player, Mishi Batshuayi. How do you think, with 5 goals in the league, 9 goals overall, what do you think of his performance? Is it a stepping stone, and he's just way too poor to be a Chelsea player?
Um, no,
You it's
I'd
come early for Sid with that one.
no, I don't
Can't
think.
do anything for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I won't. I won't change my opinion on him. I think you'd be happy if a youth player came in and did that for you, but not a 30 million pound signing who you expected to almost be your first choice striker.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh, uh,
just one thing I want to add here. If you can continue. Like there's a reason why Crystal Palace was trying to buy him, right? So he's the mid-table club quality, and I think it was more like Chelsea didn't have a backup striker, and like, okay, he's available before Palace buy him, we're gonna get him. It was that sort of situation that seemed to me at least.
Hmm.
yeah, so I'm not gonna really change my opinion on him, and I think you're gonna see it that he's not going to be a first teamer. If let's say Costa stays, he's not going to replace Costa. If you buy a Lukaku, he's not going to get a chance because you spent 70, 80, 90, 100 million on Lukaku. And with the bench coming off the bench, he's probably going to do slightly better than what he did, which still doesn't justify his 30 million pound tag. And from what I've seen, he's been efficient, but he's not that special player. I'd rather see a Tammy Abraham or one of the other youth players come through and do what do the job that he did.
I want to point out a couple of things. Let's take Michi's performance against Spurs, and the two things that went slightly unnoticed. That first goal by Willian was amazing, but if you saw the replay of that goal, what you'll notice is the first guy who's ready to take to if there's any rebound, who's ready to plunge and score is Michi Batshuayi. So one thing I like about him is he works hard. Now, the bad thing about him, he's not smart working or he's not efficient in what he does. There's in that game around the 55th minute, he ran a lot. He was making a lot of runs. They were useless. And there was one time when David Luiz put a ball on the top where he was on a completely different mindset. So he has a lot to improve on. And I think a lot of the critics have been true. He's not as good, but he is hardworking. He wants to learn. So let's see what happens. Last thing I want to add is there's one guy in Chelsea's loan out of the Brazilian loan people there is Bertrand Traore, who's done amazing at Ajax. And Chelsea would do well to keep him in there, maybe as a third striker or a second striker. I'm really looking forward to him
But let
jumping
me
in.
let me let me ask you why he's done well. Why he's done well? Because he's played in Europe and in the Dutch league as a first choice striker, and that's why he's gotten to show what he has.
Sid,
If he's a third choice player at Chelsea, he'll probably get a game. That's it. He won't even get a medal if
true.
Chelsea win anything.
So here's the thing, right? I think we can talk about youth next, but if you look at the 15-16 season, he scored about 7 or 8 goals, and also look at the number of games he started. It was more than 10 or 15. He's definitely made more than 20 appearances, and that goes back to my point of giving youth a chance, and of signs of things to change. But actually, Bertrand Traore have played a lot in that 2015-16 season, and hopefully Chelsea don't sell him and they actually get him back. I have trust in Conte that he might pick up at least a couple of youth or loan products this year.
All right.
Shannon?
No, you guys summed it up pretty well. I guess before we wrap up this episode, I just want to digress away from Chelsea and just talk about English football in general. It will be the first time, I guess, one of the first time, maybe second time ever, where England has like 5 teams in the Champions League proper. If Liverpool get through their qualifiers, is it about time English teams do something in Europe? It's what like last I think was Chelsea when they reached the finals in 2012. Before that, United were in 3 out of 4 finals. So it's been almost half a decade where the English teams have struggled. Uh, do you think this will be a good season for English teams in Europe? Then,
For sure, and I think the league has the managers right now for the teams to perform in Europe. I mean, talk about the top 6 clubs right now: Conte, Wenger, Guardiola, Klopp, Pochettino, Mourinho, and after that you have Benitez and Koeman. You have like the best managers in the world right now managing in the Premier League. So there's all the money, there's the squads, so there's no reason for the English teams to not perform in Europe. And we were spoiled. Growing up through college, we were spoiled. We saw Chelsea, we saw United, we saw Liverpool regularly in the semi-finals of the Champions League, and we witnessed those amazing games. So, I honestly hope that come this year or next, an English team not only does well but wins the Champions League. It's high time someone does that.
Well, the one question I have, and this will sum it up well. Do you think any of these English teams, the way they are right now, can beat a Real Madrid or a Monaco or a Juventus? Shannon?
it depends. I mean, there are shortcomings in every English team, right? But I think
And
if the managers this summer get the players that they want, I think there'll be at least a good match for the likes of Barcelona and Madrid and Juve. Uh,
And Arvind, I'm gonna use what you just said. Chelsea won it with a managerial crisis. They didn't play the way they wanted to play. They didn't have the best of squads, but players, they kind of struggled through it. They stuck together, and there was that belief. So, I, it's a good point that Madrid are almost unbeatable, Madrid and Juventus, but again, there is someone who has to beat them, and
True. My point was, right now I can't compare belief. Right now I can only compare quality. And what I am saying is, and here's the thing with summer recruitment, right? It's exciting, but the excuse that will always come in November, December is, oh, it's a transition season, it's his first season, right? What I'm getting at is, I see a bridge in quality that needs to be gapped, and that needs to be that there is a gap, and that's what I'm looking
well,
to emphasize.
well, Mourinho won the Europa League in his first season with a struggling first season with a lot of new players, which might sound like an excuse, but he delivered with the next best European trophy. So if you talk about quality, if we're saying that the English teams are not at par with Madrid or Juventus as far as quality is concerned, we're kidding ourselves. We're almost better than them if we're comparing like to like players.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Good
Alright.
point.
And the last topic for this pod is Chelsea youth. Now, Arvind, you already touched on a couple of players that you have high hopes for. We spoke about Tammy Abraham. We spoke about Andres Christensen. And I guess Dominic Solanke as well, but he looks like he's going to be on his way to Liverpool if reports are to be believed.
Oh, he's the deal is done.
Yeah,
Signed for
it's
3
confirmed. It's
million. Yeah, it's
Oh,
done.
all right. Again, I was just testing you guys.
Good one.
But I guess I want to wrap it up with this. Like, in ideal world, what do you think would be Chelsea's youth's contribution to the next season, and what would be acceptable to you, and what would be, say, acceptable to someone like Abramovich?
True. So I can't talk for Abramovich. I can talk for myself. I think this is a prime time where Chelsea have about 15 quality starting players, and there is, let's say you add 3 or 4 signings, there's still 3 or 4 spots for youth players in there. And the one thing I'd like to focus on is Chelsea haven't done well promoting youth, but the Chelsea Youth Academy has been phenomenal. I mean, in the last 5 to 10 years, we're talking about some amazing players they've developed. And not only that, the under 18 squad of England or the under 20 squad have been very heavily represented by Chelsea's Youth Academy. So they're doing something right, and they're doing something very good.
Yeah,
Now
they won.
it's that.
They won the last. They won 6 out of the last 8 FA Youth Cups and last 4 consecutively. So that says a lot about what's happening there.
You can add some UEFA Youth Champions League as well,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so they are amazing. They've been developing some great players. Adi Vivesh just gave an interview with Adam Bate at Sky Sports where he threw a lot more light on it. Again, there is a very good development of players, and now you just need a leap of faith. And Chelsea want to do it. The board of directors want to do it. I think with Conte, we have a manager who knows, who's developed players like Pogba and who saw potential in a player like Morata. So the setup is there. Now the only thing that's needed is the trust to go ahead and take the risk.
So Arvind, why do you say, or what makes you say that Chelsea want to do it, the board want to do it, and Conte wants to do it? And I'm only asking this. I'm only asking this, in this way because you like when things are supported by facts, and Conte was the manager who gave youth the least amount of game time last season. So what makes you think that he will give them time? What's going to change suddenly for Chelsea?
True. So, couple of things. First off, it feels like Conte is a manager who, and by the way, when I talk about youth for this season, I am clubbing the loan players and the youth players together because we have a lot of loan players, and that's a lot of quality that we can get into the team. And Moses is a prime example of someone who was given a chance and trusted in a good position. So similarly, Chaloba was brought in. Again see someone like I can see the critics howling at there being 37 players on loan, and when Ivanovic wanted to leave, Chelsea bought someone else in January. So it was brave of them to get Aki in to have him play in a semi-final against FA Cup. So there's a lot of things that to me, I may be naive here, but I feel in the future there will definitely be a change in the next 1 or 2 years.
All right. I can give you Chaloba, but I don't count Victor Moses as a Chelsea youth product, right? Like that. What Sid's question was based on past. I mean, you're talking about Conte's past season where he didn't introduce anyone, maybe Chaloba to an extent, and even his past history. You mentioned yourself that at Juve his average squad was like 28 years old. Maybe I guess Pogba was pulling down that average because he was like 10 years younger than everyone else.
Very true. Very true.
So even as a manager, doesn't seems like Conte has given too many youngsters a chance. Okay, you can Pogba is one off. I guess Chalobah is another. But based on those, I think at least I am with Sid to say that I don't see it could be different. I hope it's different, but I don't see any of the those lone players coming back, or more than maybe one or two youth players making any difference in Chelsea's game next year.
And I'm not against Chelsea when I say this. You know how much I appreciate anyone playing youth players, be it Manchester City. It's they've spent so much money, like billions, and how many dollars on their setup, and they have no one to show as a youth product. So it's nice to see clubs and managers promoting youth. But what hurts is that Chelsea invests so much in youth, and the number of quality players that they have, and they don't trust them. And when you say you hope the only thing remaining is for the club or manager to trust them, and I just don't understand how that's going to happen.
Yeah,
So
to summarize it, I would like to say that Chelsea have done a great job at building an academy, right? And it shows from the youth cup performances and the reserves leagues and whatnot, and the youth champions league. But that's where it ends at the moment. There is no pathway into the first team. I mean, if you have a youth academy, then that is your aim, right? That you supply your first team with quality players. At this point, it could be again the owner's need for instant success, that the youth aren't trusted to develop fast enough, and they're not trusted to do the job. They could be as good as someone, like they might be a hidden Matic somewhere. Matic also was sold off to Benfica to get to David Luiz in exchange. So if I'm wrong, correct me guys, but it just seems like the tracks stop right where the Chelsea first team begins.
and
And
looking at the past, you are 100% right. Before I make my point, Sid, go ahead.
no, lastly, but I'll let you talk about it. Lastly, you bring up Christensen, and when they signed David Luiz, if they want to trust youth, they could have brought their best centre back out on loan back to the club and played on trusted Christensen.
Christensen was on a
And
2-year loan, so that wasn't
yeah,
possible.
and
Right.
groomed him under the likes of, or anyone for that matter. And you have like 30 plus players. You groom a defender under John Terry, knowing it's his last year, under Cahill, under Aspilicueta. That's the perfect environment to groom any youth player. But they didn't do that. That just shows they don't trust them to deliver at the highest stage.
So again, the critics are absolutely right in the fact that Chelsea haven't developed any youth players. And guess who is the club that gets affected the most because of this? It's Chelsea. Would they rather have Lukaku in their ranks right now, or would they prefer to spend 100 million on him? No, Solanke is another perfect example, and I think it was a very smart move on his case to move to Liverpool, because Chelsea's track record, as you guys have rightly pointed out, is of zero youth promotion. So the ball is on Chelsea's court to really pull their socks up and promote some players. So I think that's a good way to sum up this podcast. Shannon?
Yeah, I agree. Very well said. I guess we covered a lot about Chelsea, uh, all the way back to youth. So yeah, but I hope you guys, our audience, enjoyed this. Please do give us your feedback, your thoughts, your comments, your critics. They're most welcome. And thanks, Sid. Thanks, Arvind, for joining me today in this Chelsea special podcast. I hope I see you guys soon, and we'll roll out more episodes in the near future. Cheers, boys.